This pretty girl has unexpectedly acquired a frightening ability. She can access the memory of any animal or human being by touching their buttock muscles with her hands. Jisoo is shocked by what she has just seen. It turns out that not long ago, she did not have this ability. 15 years ago, Jisoo's mother died in a car accident. Since then, she has been living with her grandfather and aunt, who come from a veterinarian family. When Jisoo first arrived, she was obviously not well received by her grandfather. She greeted him, but he didn't say a word or look up. Maybe he was afraid to look at his granddaughter, who looked exactly like him. Jisoo set herself a goal to study hard. She eventually got into Seoul National University's veterinary school. Jisoo thought that would win her grandfather's praise, but he still didn't give her a kind word. Her auntie comforted her. He's just like that. Don't mind him. Jisoo promised herself that after she had achieved success in her studies, she would definitely carry on the family veterinary practice. Many years later, the veterinary practice did indeed undergo some changes, but she had developed it into a pet hospital that only treated dogs and cats. In fact, Jisoo's major in university was pet veterinary medicine, but on this day, her sister-in-law arranged for her to give a consultation to a cow. It was because of this consultation that Jisoo's fate changed. When night fell, Jisoo reluctantly went out with the farmer in the car for the consultation. Unexpectedly, there was a traffic jam on the way. It turned out that there was a rare meteor shower tonight. These people were all looking for the best place to watch. Without thinking much, Jisoo followed the farmer to the cattle society. When she confirmed that the cow was fine and gently stroked the cow's butt to comfort it, the shooting stars in the sky suddenly streaked past Jisoo. When she woke up again, she saw her mother, who had passed away many years ago. Jisoo tried to call out to her mother, but she turned around and left. In fact, it was just a dream of hers. After she came to her senses, her sister-in-law told her that she had fainted for 3 days. Jisoo thought that before she fainted, she seemed to have seen a bright light. She was puzzled, so she simply picked up the big fat cat beside her. But when she dragged the cat, an accident happened. Jisoo was a little panicked and a little incredulous. Then she tried a little bit. After that, when she touched the cat's butt, the scene she just saw reappeared. Jisoo was a little incredulous, thinking it was just an accident. But when she touched the dog she had raised for many years, she once again read the dog's memory. Next, even when the aunt sent the fish, Jisoo was able to read the memory and accurately find out who had caught it on the hook. When she came to the hospital and told the doctor what had just happened to her, the doctor thought she should see a psychiatrist. Unwilling, Jisoo returned home and thought of her pet dog. To test whether this superpower was real, Jisoo got on a bus and prepared to test it. She looked around surreptitiously. Then Jisoo gave the man next to her a pat on the butt, but she didn't feel anything when she touched it. So Jisoo decided to try again. Unexpectedly, the next second the police handcuffed her. When she arrived at the police station, Jisoo tried to explain that she was just trying to catch a thief, but the police officer Junwoo asked her why she was touching someone's butt. Jisoo saw this and started to play dumb, asking him if it was illegal to arrest someone without evidence. Unexpectedly, Junwoo took out his phone and played the video of her touching someone's butt. Jisoo could only lower her head helplessly when she saw this. Then she seriously talked about the fact that she had superpowers. Hearing this, Junwoo immediately looked at her with contempt. The depressed Jisoo could only admit that she was just a friendly citizen. Afterwards, because no victim identified the reason Junwoo could only send Jisoo away, Jisoo, who had walked out of the police station, was still a little unwilling. She still wanted to try the scope of her supernormal abilities. When she walked past a lottery station, she stopped. She just put her hand on the lottery ticket and imagined releasing her abilities. But there was no feedback. When Jisoo wanted to turn around and leave, she saw the expression on the shopkeeper's face and realized that she hadn't paid. Embarrassed, she had to pay to leave. When Jisoo returned home at night, she happened to meet an old man with a yellow dog coming to see a doctor. According to the old man, his dog wouldn't eat for some reason. Jisoo seemed to realize that the old man couldn't afford to treat the dog. She immediately told the old man that today was the event day and the dog could be treated for free. When they returned to the pet hospital, after Jisoo's inspection, she discovered that the dog was just a little old and didn't have any other problems. The old man didn't believe her and said that the dog was fine before. Jisoo decided to try her superpowers here. Unexpectedly, she was shown a tearful scene. The old man had been bedridden for a long time, but he was still thinking about his old yellow dog. He was worried that it didn't have enough to eat and even gave the old yellow dog the food that he didn't have enough to eat. The old yellow dog felt very guilty because he thought he had caused his owner suffering. Plus, he already knew that he was old, and that his owner had to take care of him when he urinated and defecated, and that his owner was tired even though he was thinking of him. In fact, the dog went on a hunger strike to let the old man stop suffering for himself. Jisoo told the old man everything she had seen. The old man felt relieved and also felt, if it wasn't for the dog's company, He might also be lying at home like a useless person. After Jisoo sent the old man and the yellow dog away, she looked at her hands and felt for the first time that her abilities were so useful. But when he turned his head, he noticed someone who dampened his mood. Officer Junwoo was actually here. It turned out that the neighbor who had just moved in nearby was him. Junwoo was carrying a mattress and his feet didn't stabilize, so he was about to fall backwards. Jisoo happened to block him directly, just a bit awkward in position, but it happened to let her see something she shouldn't. In her memories, Junwoo was fighting against a group of criminal forces, but the person who was caught in the end was his younger brother. When he returned to reality, Junwoo angrily threw the mattress down, and by then, he had truly regarded Jisoo as a pervert who loved to grope people's butts. Junwoo threw Jisoo to the ground with a straight shoulder throw, but the fallen Jisoo confirmed that her superpower could indeed be used on people. In order to verify what she had in mind, she even thought of groping her best friend's butt. Her best friend was caught off guard and she was groped, but Jisoo was unable to access her friend's memories. So when she got home, she started making notes on a form, since she couldn't access her friend's memories, but she could see her pet and the police officer. Does that mean the police officer might not be human? At the very least, she could be sure that he wasn't a man, otherwise he wouldn't have fallen to the ground. The next day, the long-closed pet hospital unexpectedly welcomed a large number of guests. These people had heard the story of the old yellow dog, so they came here to seek treatment for their pets. And Jisoo did not disappoint these customers. She used her ability to read the memories of pets to accurately solve the customers' problems. Unexpectedly, before nightfall, the farmer who owned the cow actually came to the pet hospital again. He asked Jisoo to go to the farm and take a look at the sick old cow. When she arrived at the farm, Jisoo heard a shocking piece of news. It turned out that the farmer had also been hit by a meteor that day. From then on, whenever he touched an animal or a person's leg, he could access their memories, recalling the position of the meteor as it streaked across the sky and what had happened to him. Jisoo became even more convinced of this matter. Then she heard the farmer say, because of his unrestrained use of this ability, he has caused himself to constantly lose his hair. Hearing this, Jisoo felt a little depressed about her thinning hair. On the way back to the hospital, she glanced at the photo studio next to her. A terrifying scene of her losing her hair suddenly came to mind. At this moment, she could no longer control her fear. Before leaving, the driver didn't forget to remind Jisoo that having great power will definitely come with serious hair loss. So Jisoo immediately decided to quit her job at the pet hospital. But her sister-in-law refused. The hospital had finally started to make a profit and could not be closed down so easily. Jisoo told her that there were some things more important than money. Her sister-in-law nodded and then looked at Jisoo thoughtfully. The next day, her sister-in-law took Jisoo out to dinner and told her that a car would pick her up. In fact, she had completely betrayed Jisoo. Jisoo was taken to a fish farm by the driver. She also met her college classmate, the bespectacled man. Their job here was to vaccinate tens of thousands of fish. Vaccinating fish was a completely new field for Jisoo. When the day's work was over, Jisoo felt terrible. She wanted her aunt to pick her up, but she was refused. With no other choice, she found a pair of scuba diving equipment at the farm and planned to escape at night. Unexpectedly, she was stopped by the owner of the farm on the way. Seeing this, Jisoo could only find an excuse to leave, but after she left, the farmer's boss received a phone call with a gloomy face. Then he went to a hidden place and opened a box. In fact, this scene was seen by Junwoo. It turned out that this afternoon he received news that there was a possibility of illegal flower trading here, and the boss's actions next confirmed Junwoo's thoughts. The next day, Junwoo immediately notified the police and gathered a large number of police officers to shut down the flower sales outlet. In the end, the police found what they needed in a hidden place. Jisoo just wanted to cover her sleeping colleague with a blanket, but she didn't expect to trigger her superpower. She was a little scared after seeing the memory. Just then, her colleague woke up and asked her what was wrong. Jisoo stuttered and said that she just wanted to help him put the blanket back. The bespectacled man expressed his gratitude, letting her not have to do so. Jisoo also felt relieved upon hearing this. Then she looked at her hands. Jisoo clearly remembered that she could not see human memories. Then what was the memory just now? Then she looked at the police officer who had also been touched by him. Junwoo keenly sensed her gaze and made a gesture. Then he said, "Be careful, I'll kill you." Jisoo, who was locked up in the police station, finally waited for her sister-in-law's rescue. Seeing Jisoo being detained, her sister-in-law immediately felt distressed and asked who did it. Unexpectedly, her actions provoked Junwoo's anger. He told Jisoo to be able to call the member of parliament in this area and say that the member of parliament in this area really came for Jisoo. Junwoo immediately stood up with a serious face when he saw this. However, the next second, he politely shook hands with the member of parliament. The huge contrast before and after shattered Jisoo's worldview. Junwoo, who had just been full of righteousness, immediately denied Jisoo's status as a suspect. He even got down on one knee to uncuff Jisoo himself. After that, He even opened the car door for the congressman like a dog. Then he came to the front of the car and gave a standard 90-degree bow. This scene made the police station leader sigh. This Junwoo kid definitely has a bright future ahead of him. In fact, even if Junwoo hadn't let Jisoo go, he would have been acquitted. Just now, Junwoo verified that the flour he got from the farm owner was just bought fish feed. The next day, the leader asked him to write a self-reflection before investigating another case. This case was a case of poisoning a farm. The old farmer's onions were poisoned and he lost all his crops. Junwoo asked if he had offended anyone recently. The old farmer thought about it and said a name. This person was Jack, who grew pears next door. When Junwoo arrived at Jack's house, he also noticed his flashing eyes and obviously injured hands during the questioning. However, when he brought Jack back to the police station for investigation, Jack denied the matter. He even asked him to search his home if he didn't believe him, but when Junwoo actually searched, he found nothing. Meanwhile, Jisoo met a customer from her pet hospital at the convenience store. The man asked her to go with him to take care of a sick stray cat. In fact, Jisoo had long been attracted to the somewhat handsome man in front of her. After the two found the cat, the man handed the cat to Jisoo, which triggered her superpowers once again, and she saw a scene of a man burying something in the ground. Back home, Jisoo once again recalled the scene she just saw in the cat, and decided to explore at night. When she was digging a hole, Junwoo suddenly appeared next to her. Both of them were so shocked by each other that they didn't know what to do. Jisoo's panic-stricken escape was understandable. Unexpectedly, Junwoo was also a scared man. The two panicked and bumped into each other before they could see each other clearly. Junwoo let out a sigh of relief and looked at the deep pit where the pesticide bottle was exposed. At this moment, the case of the onion garden being poisoned was completely solved. Junwoo wanted to ask Jisoo how she knew about this place. Seeing this, Jisoo hesitated for a moment. In the end, she still told the truth that she had superpowers. As long as her hands touched someone's butt, she could access that person's memories. Junwoo didn't believe it when he heard this, but he didn't reject it as much as before. When she got home, Jisoo complained to her best friend that her new neighbor was like a crazy person. Unexpectedly, her best friend threw out the butt cushion. Jisoo seemed to sense something, so she touched her best friend's butt again. This time, she was finally sure that she could read people's memories. While she was excited, she suddenly remembered the memories she saw in a male colleague before. If she could really see human memories, then it meant that the girl in the memory must have encountered danger. When Jisoo remembered this, the first person she thought of was Junwoo, who lived next door. She told him about the scene she had seen with her superpower. Unexpectedly, Junwoo treated her like a mental patient. Helpless, Jisoo had to use her connections at university. Eventually, she found an older student who was friendly with the bespectacled younger student, and from the other person's mouth, she learned the other person's home address. According to the address, Jisoo went to the younger student's doorstep. She also called to try to find out if the other person was home. After getting the news that the other person was not at home, Jisoo was a little excited. Unexpectedly, an accident happened the next moment. When she arrived at the cafe, Jisoo explained that she had just met the senior. Knowing that the junior worked under him, she wanted to surprise him. The man in glasses suddenly understood and chose to believe her. However, when he discovered that he had taken the bag out to prepare to attach it, Jisoo took the opportunity to use her superpower again, but things did not go as planned. This time, she touched the wrong object, and her hands accidentally touched the waiter next to her. Jisoo was so embarrassed that she had to panic and say goodbye to her schoolmate and leave. That night, Jisoo got together with her best friend. Her best friend planned to introduce her to her new boyfriend. What Jisoo never expected was that her best friend's boyfriend was the waiter she touched at the cafe that day. This time, it really embarrassed her. At first, Jisoo thought that the woman in her memory was her best friend, so she thought if she wanted to please her boyfriend, would a suspender top and wig combo be too shocking? But her best friend looked confused and flatly denied having done such a thing. At that moment, Jisoo felt a green light shining on her best friend's cute face. Her best friend told her to speak up if she had something to say. Just as Jisoo was hesitating, she happened to see her classmate go out. She knew that her chance to find out the truth had come. She quickly told her best friend's boyfriend about the possibility that he was secretly seeing someone else. Jisoo then went to her boyfriend's house. She used the stray cat in the yard and her superpowers to obtain the electronic lock code for her boyfriend's house. When she entered the room, she quickly noticed something unusual. A man's house had a woman's live streaming room, and the pink chair in front of her was exactly the same as she remembered. Jisoo suspected that the girl might have had an accident. Just as she was looking around, she suddenly heard the sound of the lock being opened from outside the door. Worried about being discovered, Jisoo quickly picked up her shoes and hid, and the younger student who walked into the room seemed to have noticed something unusual. As well, the bedroom door was open. Jisoo, who had hidden in the bathroom, knew that this was not a solution, so she looked at the small window beside her. She needed to leave the room before the other person found her here. Just as the younger student was about to find her, Jisoo used all her strength to escape. In the end, she left the younger student with a messy bathroom. That's how Jisoo dragged the window frame home and was seen by her neighbor Junwoo. Junwoo couldn't help but exclaim, "This woman Jisoo is really psychotic." Subsequently, Junwoo went downstairs to stop her and ask what was going on. Jisoo immediately said, "If you don't believe me, you almost got me killed." She was so aggrieved that she wanted to leave. But in the end, she turned back and begged Junwoo to help her take the doorframe off. This time, Junwoo didn't make any sarcastic comments again. When he gave her a saw to cut the doorframe, Jisoo asked him why he didn't believe in her, and once again told him about her superpowers. In fact, Junwoo was also curious about why this was the case. He had seen Jisoo's memories, and so she told him his secret. Junwoo never thought that Jisoo knew something that only he and his brother knew. It was only at this moment that he began to believe that the woman in front of him really did have superpowers. However, he didn't want to say anything more and instead told Jisoo to hurry and leave. After returning home, Jisoo went to the video website again to look for clues. Unexpectedly, she discovered the girl's true identity. The scene in front of her was exactly the same as the scene she remembered from the girl's abduction. However, Jisoo still felt like she was missing something important. Then she found a flaw in the mirror in the video. The doorknob in the other room was different from the one she saw in the younger brother's house. Then it meant that they were not in the same room. So she began to search the website for the other person's real address. Once Jisoo found the address, she immediately called Junwoo and asked him to trust her for once, and said that she had found the home address of the girl who might have been kidnapped. It was this phone call that saved Jisoo's life. When she got on the elevator and went up to the floor where the girl's house was, she happened to see the door ajar. So Jisoo walked into the room but didn't see the girl's figure. Instead, the schoolmate suddenly appeared from behind. In fact, he had already installed a surveillance camera in his own home, and knew that it was his schoolmate who had broken into his home. Seeing that his crime had been completely exposed, he had the intention to kill Jisoo. If Junwoo had not arrived in time, Jisoo would have already died. Jisoo, who had recovered, ran to the bathroom. She happened to see the girl hanging in the room. She quickly picked her up and then called for help from Junwoo. On the other side, Junwoo, who had kicked his schoolmate away, also hurried over. Luckily, he arrived in time to save the girl and her life. It was at this moment that Junwoo truly believed in the fact that Jisoo had supernatural powers. The two's fate was officially connected. On this day, Jisoo only lightly tapped her best friend's buttocks with her hand. The other person's memories appeared in front of her like a slideshow. This test made Jisoo understand that as long as she touches her buttocks with her fingers, she can watch any memory within a week. Then she touched her palm to let her see her best friend beating up a punk. Her best friend told her that it happened 3 months ago. Then Jisoo tried again and needed it twice. Unexpectedly, she saw her own ugly appearance in her best friend's memory. She awkwardly asked Jisoo and remembered that it actually happened a year ago. After repeated tests, she completely mastered the use of her superpower. The larger the area she touches and the more frequently she needs, the longer she can see more distant memories. The reason for her to test like this is because of the communication she just had with Junwoo. Junwoo wants to know how to use her superpower, but Jisoo, who has received the superpower, has never considered this, and her words have awakened Jisoo. So there was the scene just now. But what she didn't expect was that the next day Junwoo came looking for her to make her responsible for herself. Junwoo said that yesterday he missed the opportunity to get promoted to save you. It turned out that last night's operation to arrest the drug lord was a great success. The team leader and other team members were promoted because of it. So, unwillingly, he took out a bunch of long unsolved major cases and asked Jisoo to cooperate with him to catch the criminals. But Jisoo wouldn't dare to agree. She told him that as long as she used her superpowers, her hair would fall out. Unexpectedly, Junwoo really didn't treat her as a human being. The next second, he took out tools and asked Jisoo to shave her hair. Jisoo had no choice but to go down the path of touching people's buttocks under Junwoo's threat. From then on, there was a woman in the city who liked to touch other people's buttocks. Her figure could be seen everywhere in the streets and alleys. Even the men's gym was not spared from her clutches. Everyone's buttocks were marked by Jisoo. Junwoo was also very satisfied with the result. Many cases were solved perfectly. Jisoo was a little tired after a busy day. Hearing this, Junwoo then took her to a massage room. Jisoo was very happy, thinking that this was Junwoo's reward for her hard work. She really didn't expect Junwoo to be such a scoundrel. Junwoo even took out a set of technician clothes for her to change into. There was also a triad boss waiting for her touch in the room. Under Jisoo's careful manipulation, the boss was still cruelly touched by her. Perhaps this boss also didn't expect that his purity, which he had preserved for many years, would be destroyed by a sweet masseuse. Enraged, he immediately chased after the fleeing Jisoo with a large number of his henchmen. After he cornered Jisoo in a corner of the underground parking lot and was about to take action, he met his tragic end. Jisoo fearfully closed her eyes. When she opened them, The first thing she saw was Junwoo. The boss who was so imposing a moment ago had been knocked to the ground by Junwoo. Unexpectedly, Junwoo was such a man of exceptional strength. Jisoo's use of her superpowers was really a bit of a waste. She had wanted to take some time off to rest, but instead Junwoo had her practice iron palm by burning a wok. As a result, not only did Jisoo's superpowers not improve after all that work, she discovered the next day that she could no longer see other people's memories. Jisoo finally understood why her superpowers had disappeared. Her fingerprints had been worn flat from practicing iron palm. When Junwoo came looking for help, she resolutely refused. Jisoo complained, "It's all your fault for making me practice iron palm. If my hands could return to normal, then maybe I could still help you." So Junwoo, who was desperate, immediately went to the skin care store and bought a bottle of anything that seemed to work. This made the female clerk very happy, and she desperately promoted various products to this idiot. Subsequently, Junwoo, in order to help Jisoo recover more quickly, he even applied various skin care products on her himself, just to get her to help him get off as soon as possible. Junwoo even became a masseur to massage Jisoo's tired shoulders, and the reason for him to stoop so low was because there was a major case to solve. It turns out that Junwoo has just been commissioned by a congressman to steal his safe. The congressman's safe was stolen with important information that threatened his election. At that time, Junwoo promised the congressman that he would do it right in order to return to Seoul. He didn't realize that Jisoo had regained his powers after all these operations, so Junwoo dragged her to the congressman's election site without stopping. Next to her, there's an opponent who's competing with the counselor. Junwoo told Jisoo to go up and try touching all of them. To make things go smoothly, he called Jisoo's best friend to help him. He asked her to bring her sisters to create chaos. Her best friend didn't disappoint. They instigated a big fight between the two sides. Jisoo took this opportunity to touch everyone. Then she found a suspicious woman, but when Jisoo used her superpower, it didn't seem to work. She had no choice but to try again, until Junwoo came over and asked if there were any results. Jisoo told him that she didn't see anything. In fact, it's not that Jisoo didn't see anything, but she discovered a secret today. The person who stole the congressman's data could be her grandfather. Jisoo didn't say anything when she saw her grandfather passing by. He put on his shoes and walked out of the house as if he didn't see her. At the same time, a female netizen came to a convenience store near Jisoo's house. When she saw the handsome male clerk, she left her phone number in his hand and asked him to call her anytime. The male clerk looked at the number in his hand and pondered. Then she drove away from the place, but she was driving dangerously in the middle of the road. By the time she realized the danger, it was too late. In a panic, she crashed head-on into a pile of wood. She almost collided with another man with supernatural powers. He wanted to wait for the police to arrive. Instead, she told him to get lost. She would contact the insurance and towing company herself, so he left without a word. But the webgirl would never have thought that this decision would put her in a disastrous situation. While she was waiting for help, a mysterious man in a trench coat approached her. Then she was dragged to the ground like a dead dog. Meanwhile, Jisoo was poking around the streets. It turns out she used her powers to read a dog's memory today. The man buried the dog alive because he didn't like it. Thinking about this, Jisoo decided to find this wretched man. Unexpectedly, Junwoo suddenly approached her and asked her to help investigate a theft case. But Jisoo told Junwoo that as long as this pet abuse case is not solved, she won't help the police to use her superpower. So Junwoo immediately went back to the police station to look for the cars that came in and out of the place where the incident happened. But even though he investigated the whole night, he couldn't find a single clue. While he was frustrated, Jisoo came to the police station and told him the good news. The supernatural power of her hands can be effectively enhanced through maintenance. So Jisoo comes to the nail salon and Junwoo pays the bill. What both of them didn't realize was that after this manicure, Jisoo's supernatural power really improved dramatically. Not only could she see more clearly, and her memories are automatically visualized as thumbnails with timestamps. Most importantly, she can even see farther. Jisoo and Junwoo went to the neighborhood they remembered. Junwoo thought it would be a needle in a haystack to find the owner of the dog in such a neighborhood. But then Jisoo put the dog down and untied the leash. They followed the dog all the way to a house. When he opened the door, Jisoo immediately recognized the man as the dog's owner. Junwoo reveals his identity as a detective. In the end, the man paid the price for abusing his pet. The dog abuse case was solved. Then they started investigating the theft case. Jisoo soon read the suspect's memory. She realized that the suspect had been seeing the same person a lot lately, but they both spoke Arabic. So Jisoo told Junwoo that she couldn't help him. Upon hearing this, Junwoo told Jisoo to return the diamond ring she gave him. Unexpectedly, Junwoo's best friend, who has been secretly in love with him, saw this scene. After Junwoo left, Jisoo realized that her best friend was not happy. After talking to her, she realized that there was a big misunderstanding. She thought she was Junwoo's girlfriend. Before she could explain, Sunyoung did some taekwondo. After her performance, Jisoo dares to explain that she's only using her powers to help Junwoo solve the case. Sun Young finally let go of her heart. But before Jisoo could breathe a sigh of relief, Junwoo brought a thick Arabic book for her to study to help solve the case, and Jisoo was the chosen one who was struck by a meteor. After many days of hard study and Junwoo's urging, she finally understood the meaning of what the man in her memory had said. So Jisoo couldn't wait to tell Junwoo the news. It turned out that Ali's mom was sick and needed a lot of money for an operation. That's why he cooperated with others to steal the fishing boat's fish finder. Junwoo went to the fishing boat and found Ali. He asked him about the location of the mastermind. Then Junwoo took Ali to their lair. At first, he thought there were only two of them, so Junwoo was brave enough to break into the room. But when he walked in, more criminals suddenly came out. At this moment, Junwoo was also confused. Even if he is a strong man, it's inconvenient for him to bring a girl with him, not to mention the fact that a bunch of people suddenly appeared behind him. When they realized Junwoo's identity as a police officer, they decided to kill him. Then they threw Junwoo and Jisoo into the sea. If Ali hadn't jumped into the sea to save them, they would have been killed. The next day, Ali turned himself in to his boss. Jisoo also helped to explain. The boss didn't know what to say. At that moment, Junwoo came over and handcuffed Ali. I didn't realize that the boss and his wife, who hadn't said a word earlier, would come out to plead for Ali. Jisoo even came out to stop Junwoo. Ali just saved our lives, and he made a mistake because his mother was sick. Can't he be forgiven? But Junwoo told her that Ali is still a criminal after all. Jisoo didn't know what to say when she heard that. On the other hand, a fishing enthusiast caught a woman's earring. His partner joked that there must be a body nearby, and that body was the murdered internet starlet. Jisoo looked at Junwoo with a shocked face. She's never heard such a perverted request. He pushed up his buttocks and asked her to touch him. Seeing that he was serious, Jisoo went straight for it and unleashed her superpower. Then Junwoo's memories appeared in her mind like a slideshow. It turns out that Junwoo wanted to use Jisoo's superpower to catch the thief who stole the panties. The day before, a thief who specializes in stealing women's underwear suddenly appeared in the village. This thief also has a special hobby of targeting the village moms. They kept telling Junwoo the details of their missing panties. The straight man Junwoo almost died at the scene. At that moment, a phone call came and he was able to avoid this fate for a while. But the next day, when she was packing her underwear, she realized that another pair of underwear had disappeared. The team leader who received the call promised the women they would catch the thief. The police set up a task force to solve the problem. Junwoo didn't want to join the team, but the team leader dragged him in. Based on his intuition, the team leader ambushed the house with the most daughters in the village, but they really found the burglar's whereabouts. A man in black scaled the wall with great agility. In a flash, he stole more than 10 pairs of underwear from this family. By the time he climbed out of the wall again, Junwoo and the others who were ready had already opened the car door and chased after him. But Junwoo not only failed to catch the culprit, instead of catching the culprit, he was beaten by him while searching for him. Junwoo took care of his head briefly. He went out to patrol the streets again. This time, he was still lucky enough to find him, but unfortunately, he lost him again while chasing the culprit. And for the second time, Junwoo was hit in the head. He had no choice but to approach Jisoo for help. He asked her to touch his buttocks to check the details he had missed in his memory. Then the first scene happened. Unexpectedly, this investigation really allowed Jisoo to find the real burglar. It turns out that the burglar was a customer of the pet store. Jisoo recognized the dog bowl that hit Junwoo's head. Then Junwoo went to the burglar's house with Jisoo's guidance. They finally sneaked into the other's house. When he smelled the burglar, he fled through the window. Junwoo chased him through the streets, with the addition of a helper. Junwoo and the other man split up. Eventually, the burglars were arrested by the helpers, but Junwoo came to a small forest and also saw a suspicious figure. When he gets closer, he realizes it's his long-lost brother. Meanwhile, Jisoo arrives. She recognized the man in front of her as Junwoo's brother. She didn't expect to see a shocking scene the next moment. Her brother walked into Junwoo and stabbed him in the stomach. Jisoo ran over and covered Junwoo's wound and tried to call the police, but Junwoo stopped her and fell into a coma. Just a few hours ago, Junwoo received a phone call from his former colleague in Seoul. Another woman has died because of Boss Bai's crime syndicate, the man behind her relegation to the countryside. But no one in Seoul dares to touch his powerful colleague. The co-worker feels aggrieved and asks Junwoo to come and investigate. Jisoo was stopped by Junwoo when she was going out to the clinic. Jisoo was brought to Seoul by Junwoo in a daze. She whispered to Junwoo that he had purchased a lot of pirate ships by reading the memories of the boss. This immediately made Junwoo suspicious, so he left Jisoo and went to Boss Bai's office alone. The first time they met, there was a lot of gunfire. Junwoo even told him the purpose of buying a fishing boat. Boss Bai's face instantly changed when he heard this, but Junwoo didn't care a bit, as if he had already guessed his reaction. He then warned the other party that he would be back soon and left the place. But after Junwoo left, There was a familiar face in the office. This person is his brother who has been missing for a long time. Boss Bai knew about the relationship and arranged for him to get rid of Junwoo. So Junwoo was stabbed while chasing a burglar. Jisoo took Junwoo to the operating room and stayed there. She didn't say anything when the police came to ask who the murderer was, because Jisoo promised Junwoo not to tell anyone. But when Junwoo woke up the next day from his coma, she felt deeply for Junwoo. It turns out that when Jisoo touched Junwoo's memories, she knew how good Junwoo was to his brother. Every year, Junwoo, a straight man, never misses his brother's birthday. When Junwoo realized that Jisoo had seen his memories, he felt helpless. He then told Jisoo that he would take care of it. The neighbor's uncle and Jaehyun came to the hospital to visit Junwoo. When Junwoo got up, the pain made him cover his wound. He immediately asked if he hurt his spleen. That immediately made Junwoo suspicious. He wondered why he knew so much about the human body. Jaehyun explained that he just likes to read what others share. Jisoo returned to the hospital soon after and saw the man who stabbed Junwoo, so she rushed to contact Junwoo. When he didn't answer, she called the police chief. Jisoo followed him into the stairwell. She didn't expect to be caught in the act. When they arrived at the rooftop, Jisoo sensed the man's concern for Junwoo in his words, so she didn't understand his behavior. Seeing that the other man was deep in thought and didn't answer, Jisoo seized the opportunity to escape, but she was dragged to the ground. Unexpectedly, it triggered her superpower. It turns out that the man was threatened by Boss Bai. If he complies, the woman lying on the ground will be saved. Otherwise, next year today will be the date of his death. That's why he was forced to become Boss Bai's assassin to eliminate Junwoo. But he knew Junwoo's secret. Junwoo has a scar on the left side of his abdomen that was stabbed by Boss Bai. For this reason, he had his spleen removed from this area. If he gets stabbed again, he won't die. Jisoo realized this and tried to drag him to explain to Junwoo, but he got free and ran away. When Jisoo told Junwoo about it, Junwoo remembered how he had responded. He did say that to his brother, but he still said that he would never forgive him. While they were arguing about it, his brother came into the room covered in blood. When he saw this, Junwoo was in a state of panic. The younger brother was still apologizing to his brother. Jisoo took the opportunity to read his memories. All he saw were his memories of Junwoo. In the end, he was stabbed by a man in a raincoat, and then the scene suddenly cuts out. This was the first time Jisoo had encountered such a situation. She soon realized what happened. The man died in Junwoo's arms. On that day, Jisoo looked at the magpies that had just flown away and had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. She didn't realize that the next moment, her premonition would come true. Jisoo was forced to climb a pole. Junwoo guessed that the young birds in the nest could be a clue to the case, but when Jisoo managed to climb up to the top, she took one look and climbed down. It turns out that her superpower can only see what animals see, and the nest was full of chicks who couldn't open their eyes, so Junwoo left in sadness. At that moment, a snake passed in front of her eyes. Jisoo's bad feeling came again. As expected, Junwoo took a liking to snakes. He grabbed several snakes for Jisoo to try his powers. Unexpectedly, she found a clue in this one attempt. Jisoo found her brother's murderer in the snake's memories, a man in a green raincoat with a limp. Jisoo and Junwoo went to the raincoat store and identified the model of the green raincoat. Junwoo was so excited that there was hope of solving the case. Coincidentally, they turned around and saw a man wearing a raincoat. Upon closer inspection, they realize it's Jaehyun from the convenience store. Junwoo is surprised and asks the store owner who has bought raincoats lately. He was surprised to hear some bad news, because it's inconvenient to work with an umbrella in a small fishing village, so everyone here has a raincoat. This undoubtedly makes it more difficult to solve the case, and the clues that he had previously obtained are now useless. In fact, Junwoo suspected that the murderer of his brother was Boss Bai, but Jisoo realized through his superpower that Boss Bai is not the murderer of Junwoo's brother even though he wanted to kill him. That's why Junwoo took Jisoo to dig out the bird's nest. Both of them were a little disappointed when they returned without any success, but the next day, Jisoo discovered something amazing while working at the pet store. She found a woman's body through her dog's memory. Jisoo went to the beach with a skeptical attitude. She didn't expect to see the image she remembered. The police quickly got the message and cordoned off the scene, but when Junwoo saw the earrings on the body, he realized the identity of the woman. It's the internet girl that he and Jisoo saved last time. The police immediately set up a task force. Junwoo found out from the girl's manager that the last time they met was at a convenience store. So he went to the convenience store and asked Jaehyun if he'd seen her. Jaehyun told Junwoo frankly. The hostess had left her phone number for him and asked him to meet her, but he didn't go. Seeing Jaehyun's honesty eased Junwoo's suspicion. Jaehyun's guidance led Junwoo to the next door neighbor, and he found some clues in his cell phone. Junwoo saw the girl driving away that night. Then with the help of his colleagues at the police station, he found the car in an automobile repair shop. The mechanic told Junwoo that when they went to the scene of the accident, they didn't find the web star. Afterwards, Junwoo went to the scene of the accident but found no useful clues. Junwoo told Jaehyun about it. Jaehyun was surprised to hear that she had a car accident before she died. It turns out that a few days ago, when she was communicating with the farm owner about her superpower, she knew that he had a car accident with a web girl. Junwoo went to his farm and took out the photos. He didn't deny it and described the accident in detail to Junwoo. It was this behavior that made Junwoo suspicious. He couldn't understand why he remembered so clearly what happened 2 weeks ago. The older man was stunned for a moment and explained that he only remembered it so well because of the beauty of the internet girl. He asked Junwoo what happened. He was surprised to hear that the web girl was dead. Junwoo didn't say anything, but then he suddenly tried to touch Junwoo's thigh. Junwoo reflexively stopped him, but after Junwoo left, he showed a subtle expression on his face. The next day, Junwoo and Jisoo were worried about how to continue their investigation when they suddenly heard a lot of noise from the outside world. It turns out that 2 murders in a row in a small fishing village have frightened the villagers, so they raised money and invited a neighbor to perform a ritual. What we didn't expect was that when the 2 men arrived at the scene, something strange suddenly happened. The neighbor stumbled towards Junwoo. The words he said were the same words his brother said to Junwoo before he died. What's even more frightening is that the next moment, the uncle seems to be possessed by a female internet celebrity. As he fell, the faces of the people around him changed subtly. The murderer may be hiding among these people, and the neighbor may know something too. Junwoo just gave a look to his neighbor Jisoo. Jisoo touched the tea house owner's buttocks. Soon she got the answer she was looking for. Jisoo showed an innocent expression as the boss's wife looked at her. The boss's eyes immediately went to Junwoo. She already suspected that Junwoo had attacked her, so soon the boss's wife also taught him a lesson. It turns out that Jisoo and Junwoo are here to investigate a missing woman case. The night before, Lucy, a tea delivery man, was stopped by a man in a green raincoat while making a delivery. Lucy remembered the murders in her village and had a bad feeling about it. But the boss's wife guessed that Lucy had escaped when she didn't come back for a long time, so she immediately arranged for her men to search for Lucy at all transportation hubs. But she didn't realize that the woman beside her looked surprised. The woman didn't believe Lucy had escaped, so the next day she went to the police station to report to the police. But when she was seated, she found a strange woman wearing a helmet. It turned out that this woman was Jisoo. It was only when she talked to her best friend and analyzed the situation that she realized she might have become a thorn in the side of the serial killer. Jisoo realizes that she has fallen into a dangerous situation. Thinking about it, she decided not to work with Junwoo anymore, but Junwoo promised to protect her. That's why it's funny that she's wearing a helmet. Junwoo told the woman not to worry about it. Jisoo just has a little mental problem, so the woman told Junwoo her suspicions. She and Lucy are co-workers who work in the same tea room. From what she knew, she guessed that something must have happened to Lucy. In addition to the recent storm in the village, Lucy must have suffered an accident. Lucy is a kind woman. In addition to the daily expenses at the tea room, she often donates the rest of the money to the orphanage in the village, because she thinks her brother might be in the orphanage. It turns out that her brother disappeared when she was a child because of Lucy. Lucy has not given up looking for him for many years, and before her parents passed away, they were still searching for her brother's whereabouts. Lucy has been blaming herself for this. Jisoo was in tears when she heard this. She assured the woman beside her that they would find Lucy. Then the scene in the tea room happened. At first, the boss's wife denied that Lucy had disappeared and had gone back to her hometown. But through the memories acquired just now, Jisoo realized that the boss, Mrs. Bai, was just lying. The woman also told them that the boss just didn't want her tea room to get into trouble. After all, they have some special services. The woman was about to say something else but was interrupted by the sudden appearance of the boss's wife. So the woman rode her motorized scooter to leave. Unexpectedly, Jisoo accidentally found a deja vu item. She had seen the same keychain at Jaehyun's place before she came here. Jisoo was encouraged and persuaded by Junwoo to go to Jaehyun's convenience store to try it out. She was able to touch her partner's buttocks. Most of Jisoo's memories are of the congressman. Then she also found the keychain clue. It's just a gift from a high school seller that Jaehyun bought second-hand goods from. Jisoo told Junwoo about it, so they found the director of the high school through a BFF relationship. Jisoo recognized the boy's identity through her powers. Then with the director's help, they realized that the motorcycle was a high school student's found object. They went to the place where the motorcycle was abandoned. Soon, the attentive Jisoo found bloodstains on the ground and the murder weapon in the grass. But Junwoo didn't say anything when he saw this. Then they discovered a surveillance device. After going back to the police station and investigating, surprisingly, the surveillance equipment really captured the scene of Lucy and the man in the raincoat tearing each other apart. But in the end, they both disappeared. Colleagues all suspect that Lucy was killed. Only Junwoo felt something was wrong, so he went to the place where Lucy made her last order. The man said he was called back by Lucy's boss after delivering the coffee. That's when Jisoo arrived. She used her powers on the man under Junwoo's guidance. Jisoo saw that Lucy had indeed left after delivering the coffee, but the direction Lucy went was not the tea room or the place where the murder took place. This made them suspicious. Then they followed Lucy's direction. As they walked, Jisoo realized something familiar. So this is the location of the cattle farmer. Junwoo asked him if he knew Lucy well. He said he'd seen Lucy before, but he didn't know her well. At this point, Jisoo has already realized that something is wrong. She had seen the relationship between Lucy and Ajussi when she was testing her powers. Uncle is clearly lying at this time. At this moment, the uncle is still looking for an excuse to touch Junwoo, but Jisoo pushes him away in time. After he left, Jisoo told Junwoo that he was not only lying, he also has the power to read other people's memories just like him. He must have a secret that he wants to touch Junwoo's thigh so badly. So the two of them hid and waited for the uncle to go out and followed him all the way to a food market, but they lost him. Junwoo decided to split up. Then Jisoo found the other's trail. She took a taxi with him to a remote building. In the car, she told Junwoo the location. Junwoo had already realized that this was not a simple case. At the crime scene, he realized that it was faked. The bloodstains at the scene were too small for a human life, so Uncle could only tell the truth. He wanted to help Lucy to get rid of her boss. At that time, he had already put up a huge sum of money to help Lucy pay off her debts, but the lady boss did not agree, because the other party's power was too strong. Uncle could only think of the trick of faking his death. Junwoo told them that this is not the way to go. He asked them to go back to the police station with him before making any plans. Unexpectedly, when they were about to leave, the uncle told Jisoo a shocking secret. By touching Jisoo's thigh, he realized that they weren't the only ones hit by the meteor. In other words, there's another person in the village who has other people's memories, and this person could be anyone in the village or the murderer of the 10 serial murders. The next day, he met a woman. He didn't realize that the owner of the tea house was approaching her with a gangster. They grabbed the woman's hair without saying a word. When he saw this, he warned her that it was against the law. I didn't realize that the owner of the tea room wasn't scared and told him to call the police if he could. Obviously she knew that the woman had some secret that the police couldn't know. The old man obviously knows this too, so he's a bit powerless. When he saw Myung's appearance after the men had left, Uncle immediately realized what the problem was. So he quickly went to the pet hospital and found Jisoo. It turned out that Jisoo had told Myung about their whereabouts, and Myung had another reason for doing so. She was really worried about Lucy's safety and called the police, but when she heard that Lucy was just going to run away, she immediately became very upset. Both of them owed a huge debt to the owner of the tea house and were both guarantors for the other. If one of them runs away, the other one will be responsible for all the debts. Jisoo was not happy to hear this. At night, she met Jae-hyun at a restaurant. Jisoo talked about her problems and had a drink, but she fainted on the table. In her dream, she remembers the day her mother died, but Jisoo saw Myung's silhouette. When she woke up, she broke out in a cold sweat, so she found Myung with a bit of worry. Jisoo apologized for what she did before. He offered to help her and Lucy clear the debt of the tea house owner, but Myung didn't believe her. She was about to leave when Jisoo got in the car. Myung left Jisoo behind after delivering the coffee. Unbeknownst to him, he brought trouble to himself. Jisoo chased after him and saw the motorcycle on the ground and realized something was wrong, and the keys were still in the same place. When she saw fireflies flying in the air, she caught one and used her superpower. Myung was then chased by the man in the raincoat. Based on the firefly's memory, Jisoo found them and saved Myung, but her hand was injured when she untied him. They fled to a hidden bush. Because Myung's leg was injured, she couldn't walk too far. Jisoo had to go out alone to rescue her. When he returned with Junwoo, Myung had already been killed. Junwoo first suspected Uncle. Jisoo used her superpower to find out that Ajussi wasn't the murderer. In the car, she said that there was a third superhuman besides herself and Uncle. Hearing this, Junwoo realizes that there's a possibility that the superhero is the murderer. He might know that Jisoo can read people's memories. That's why he closes his eyes every time he kills to prevent Jisoo from probing him. And from the way he did it, we can analyze that he stumbled because his eyes were closed. The stab wounds on the victim's body were disorganized. After returning to the police station, the two of them sorted out and identified several suspects. However, Jisoo's hand was injured, so they needed his help. That's why Junwoo was doing the manicure for him. Jisoo's body has already proved this. If you take good care of your palm, you can see a clearer scene. Uncle got a memory by touching Jisoo's leg. He saw the blurred figure of the third superhero. Uncle's careful comparison at the cow club. He confirmed that it was a man taller than himself and lower than Junwoo. Junwoo then drove Jisoo home and told her that the murderer's next target might be her. As soon as Junwoo left, Jisoo saw Jae-hyun riding a bicycle in the distance. When she heard that Jae-hyun's studio had just finished setting up, She thought she'd like to go and take a look. Jaehyun didn't say no, so they agreed to go together in the evening. Jisoo was happy, but she didn't know that danger was coming. That night, after a busy afternoon, the older man and Junwoo happened to meet Jaehyun leaving work at the convenience store. Looking at the other person's figure, Junwoo suddenly remembered that the suspect was a little shorter than himself and a little taller than the older man. Doesn't Jaehyun just happen to meet this condition? And after Jaehyun left, the older man also said that the other person did look a bit like the figure he saw. At this point, Junwoo already had some suspicions that Jaehyun might be the murderer. He also has the conditions to commit the crime, and he sells knives in his supermarket. Through chatting with the young salesperson, he found out that Jaehyun took half a day off for some reason the night Myung died. Meanwhile, Jisa came to Jaehyun's studio while she was observing the cat bedroom made by Jaehyun. Jaehyun looked at the knife next to him. This knife is exactly the same as the one used by the murderer before. Jaehyun took off the knife and walked step by step towards Jisoo. At this time, Jisoo did not realize the danger approaching. Junwoo, who had arrived in a hurry, got off the car and saw Jaehyun holding a knife. He was worried that Jisoo was in danger, so he hurriedly opened the door and barged in. Unexpectedly, after entering, he realized that it was a false alarm. He immediately asked Jaehyun why she had taken leave on the day the counselor voted, and that day was actually the day Myung was killed. In fact, Jaehyun also guessed that he was suspected, but he said without changing his expression the day after he and Jisa had dinner, he went to the lumber wholesaler to order items. If you don't believe it, you can investigate. Seeing this, Junwoo was doubtful but didn't dare to investigate further. After all, he didn't have any strong evidence. Immediately the next day, the police station analyzed the murder of Myung and confirmed that it was indeed a serial murder case. The murderer's modus operandi was consistent. However, the team leader was a little puzzled. According to Jisoo's testimony, the perpetrator did not show any signs of stalking them. So why did the murderer eventually find out where Myung was? It was this analysis that made Junwoo more certain of his suspicions, so he immediately gathered his own crime-solving team. He confirmed several characteristics of the murderer with Jisoo and the uncle. The perpetrator must be a superhuman and he knows Jisoo for this reason. He blindfolded himself, so it is also very likely that the perpetrator knows that the uncle also has superhuman abilities. But all of this is just his own conjecture. Junwoo told the two to be careful. Recently, he will conduct investigations independently. Junwoo, who had returned to the police station soon, discovered an excellent opportunity. Recently, the county held a major rally to create a civilized city. On that day, all the people are likely to participate, and this is the perfect place for the two superheroes to use their abilities. So Junwoo once again assembled the investigation team and told them his plan to find the third superhuman. On that day, the old man will set up a stall selling milk as usual and advertise it with free leg massages. If the criminal knows that the old man has superpowers, he will definitely refuse the massage. Then, the suspect will be locked in. Then he asked Jisoo to find a way to touch the other person's buttocks. Hearing this, Jisoo was a little skeptical. If the criminal knows that he has superpowers, will he let me touch him? Unexpectedly, Junwoo told her to figure it out herself. Speechless, Jisoo left, but then turned around and walked towards the house where Jaehyun and the old man were renting. After seeing the uncle come out, the two exchanged a few words before Jaehyun returned to the house. At this time, Junwoo looked at his research materials and was a little distressed. He was about to go blow some steam when he happened to see Jisa happily chatting with Jaehyun. For some reason, Junwoo suddenly sent a message to Jisoo, telling her not to be too pleased with herself. If she continued like this, she would really be in danger. Jisoo was a little dumbfounded. Junwoo always interrupted her when she was having a good time. She was a little upset, so she found Junwoo again and asked him to stop stalking her like a creep. Besides, she was sure that Jaehyun was a kind person, since the shaman had to make money to support his son. He would set up a fortune-telling stall at the fair the next day. Jaehyun was in charge of making the stall. The theme was the hand of truth. People could put their hands in and have their palms read, and this idea was also thought of by Jaehyun, which actually awakened Junwoo. He asked Jisoo to find the witch doctor to cooperate. Jisoo told him that she had superpowers, so the witch doctor, somewhat apologetically, found Jaehyun and said that he wanted to change the theme of the real hand to the real buttocks. He asked Jaehyun to help him punch a hole in the seat of the stall. Hearing this, Jaehyun was a little confused, but he gave a subtle smile while agreeing. Soon it was the day of the fair. Junwoo told the others not to let anyone touch them, because everyone could be a criminal, so they targeted the three elderly villagers first. After Uncle Jaeho tested their superpowers, the three were cleared of suspicion. Meanwhile, the other shaman received a customer, who turned out to be Jisoo's sister-in-law and the head of the criminal investigation team. The shaman, who had received a message from Jisoo, tricked her and convinced her to take the letter. Yumi wanted to know what happened to the detective. The shaman told them that he would only tell them if they sat in the chair. So the detective sat in the chair. Jisoo used her supernatural powers, but saw the foreigner give the detective a secret document. Without thinking, she told the shaman about it. The shaman then told the detective that he had recently met with Jisoo's grandfather. The team leader was a little shocked and a little unnatural. Then Yumi also sat on the chair. But what Jisoo never expected was that she would see her deceased mother again. It can be seen that her reporter mother was protesting at the time. This time, after more than 10 years, Jisoo forgot to convey the message to the shaman. Meanwhile, Junwoo, who was commanding from a high place, finally discovered the important suspect Jaehyun. He ordered the man to go up and try, but Jaehyun was obviously on guard against something and did not let the man touch his thigh. Seeing that the mission had failed, Junwoo was a bit depressed. Just then, his colleague suddenly volunteered to give a massage. Junwoo was sure that he was not the criminal, so he let the man go through the motions. Unexpectedly, this test revealed an important clue. The man saw Rap Park in his memory and even saw Jaehyun appear behind the other person's car. He told Junwoo about it. Rap Park and Jaehyun were both seen near the Ox Society, so they could both be the third superhuman. So Junwoo asked Sunyeon to approach Rap Park and ask him to sit in the chair. But when Rap Park heard that the shaman could not only predict the future, but also accurately tell the past, his face clearly showed that he was not happy, and he was about to leave. But the clever Sunyoung suddenly said that this would be very good news material, and the reporter next to him said they would report it properly to reassure Rap Park. So Rap Park sat in the chair prepared by the shaman. Jisoo unexpectedly displayed her superpower, and then she discovered that Rap Park did appear near the Ox Club. But then she also discovered the figure of the shaman. Jisoo told Junwoo about this, and Junwoo was also full of shock. But what Jisoo didn't expect was still to come. She discovered the truth about her mother's death. While Jisoo was shocked, Junwoo arranged for Jaeho to test him to read the memories of the shaman. As a result, this time the shaman was cleared of suspicion, but a third superhuman was discovered. Jaeho told Junwoo that from the shaman's perspective, the person hiding in the cowshed was Jaehyun. At this moment, Junwoo looked at Jaehyun, who was selling. He had just begun to believe that the uncle was the murderer, but then the tables turned, and when he looked at the uncle, he was really shocked. And Rap Park didn't know that his murder of Jisoo's mother had been exposed. Just yesterday, Junwoo had already identified the suspect as Jaehyun, and the uncle and Sunyoung had urged him to hurry and make the arrest. But at this time, Junwoo was a bit troubled. He couldn't tell his leader that he knew Jaehyun was a murderer by feeling his buttocks. Thinking about this terrible consequence, Junwoo could only arrange for everyone to search for useful evidence again. Meanwhile, Jaehyun became suspicious of the chair he was looking at. Just as he was about to walk in for an investigation and come face to face with Jisoo, Junwoo appeared in time to break the ice. Unexpectedly, this time, the two of them directly faced each other. Junwoo tried to get Jaehyun to sit in the chair, but when that didn't work, he directly asked his question. Why would a top student from Seoul University come to this remote little village to be an ordinary carpenter and settle for a small convenience store? But Jaehyun's reply was, because I want to kill someone. The scene became awkward instantly. Jaehyun's words were probably exactly what Junwoo wanted to hear. Junwoo was shocked. In the end, the two had a falling out. Meanwhile, Jisoo's auntie remembered what her father was investigating, and the report she saw about her sister from the police captain. So when she saw Jisoo come home, she suggested going to see her dead sister together tomorrow. Unexpectedly, this trip to the memorial let Jisoo know more about her mother. It seems that her mother was in great pain before committing suicide. At that time, she would often seek Rap Park. In her sister-in-law's opinion, the two were close friends. In Jisoo's confusion, her sister-in-law explained that Rap Park had pursued her mother when they were students. But after seeing Rap Park's memories, Jisoo always felt that things were not simple. Coincidentally, when Jisoo and her sister-in-law returned home, they happened to encounter Rap Park, who had just left her house. She approached and asked Rap Park if he had been close to her mother in the past. Rap Park openly admitted that this was the case. Jisoo then asked what her mother had been suffering from before she died. Rap Park revealed that Jisoo's mother had suffered from severe depression, and the two had not seen each other for a few months before she committed suicide. Hearing this, Jisoo immediately felt a shock in her heart. Having seen Rap Park's memories, she knew that the other person had lied. On the other side, Junwoo received information about Jaehyun and learned that her father had died early and her mother had disappeared. There must be something he doesn't know. So when he saw Jaehyun riding his bike out, he immediately sneaked into the house where he was staying. After a thorough search, Junwoo found a photo of Jaehyun as a child. This photo revealed that Jaehyun was indeed lying. Junwoo found the exact same background in the small village. The next day, he even came to Jaehyun's school to investigate. The staff told him that Jaehyun was clearly a teaching assistant that the professor really liked. but one day he suddenly applied for a leave of absence. Then he took out a poster with Rap Park's picture on it and said that it was the day the congressman took office that Jae-hyun took a leave of absence. At this point, it can be confirmed that Sunwoo must have come to this county because of Rap Park. Meanwhile, the investigation by the head of the criminal police team is gradually approaching the truth. More than 10 years ago, the former mayor of the county's hotly discussed project made countless people go bankrupt. Now this piece of land is worthless. At that time, the people who protested and wrote reports included Jisoo's journalist mother. Most importantly, it seems that Jae-hyun's mother was also in the protest crowd and held a position of some importance. Jisoo's sister-in-law believes that the most urgent task is to find the people who once purchased the land. The head of the criminal investigation team believes that finding the people involved is not a difficult task. The worthless land should not have been able to be sold. However, when they went to get the land ownership information, they saw that the owner had been changed on all the documents. The name of the new owner was Rap Park. When Rap Park entered his office building at night, it was obvious that someone was following him. The person was none other than Jisoo, who had discovered that Rap Park had lied. She had even seen someone trying to assassinate Rap Park. What shocked her even more was that the killer was her neighbor, an old man she knew very well. Just as the old man was about to assassinate Rap Park, he was stopped by Jisoo's cry of uncle. It was obvious to see the old man's inner struggle. Jisoo went up to him and took away the weapon in his hand. In the park, the old man told his story. It turned out that his father had listened to Rap Park's propaganda and invested in a land project in the hope of freeing his children from poverty. At that time, the uncle returned home from the army and just walked into the house and discovered something wrong. When he turned around, he found his father hanging from the beam, no longer breathing. What made him even more devastated was that his mother had also passed away from shock, so the uncle had every reason to kill. This was the first time Jisoo had heard the story about Rap Park, so after returning home, she started searching online for information about Rap Park, but she couldn't find anything about reconstruction. However, she did read a news article about old newspapers being available at the library. So the next day, Jisoo went to the library to investigate. Here she found that the news about the county's reconstruction at the time was all reported by her mother. There was also news about the trial of Representative Yoon's right-hand man in the county's reconstruction project fraud case. Seeing the word right-hand man, Jisoo guessed that it might be related to Rap Park. Immediately afterwards, she found her best friend Sunyeon's father and printed it out, and learned that Rap Yoon seemed to have intervened in the reconstruction project at the time, but no one testified. So it ended up going nowhere. Jisoo clearly saw the news that Rap Yoon was going to testify. And then, with Sunyeon's father's explanation, she was sure that the heartless person was Rap Park. But for some reason, Rap Park gave up testifying at that time. Jisoo looked at the propaganda slogan in the distance and guessed that the other party must be related to her mother's suicide. So she asked Junwoo to help her reinvestigate her mother's case. Little did she know that their conversation was witnessed by Rap Park's subordinate. The subordinate immediately reported the matter to Rap Park. Back at the police station, Junwoo found the case file. After careful investigation, he met with Jisoo at the scene of the incident the next day and told her his theory. From the case records, he didn't see anything wrong, but Jisoo believed that her mother had no reason to commit suicide. So how did the police judge at the time? Junwoo said it was based on Rap Park's confession. During the interview, Rap Park said that Jisoo's mother and his father had a bad relationship and was taking antidepressants, and Jisoo's mother did have a record of psychiatric treatment. So the police concluded that it was a suicide. If there was no testimony from Rap Park, perhaps the police would have considered all possibilities and continued to investigate. Jisoo thought to herself. She didn't expect to run into Rap Park when she got home. At the dinner table, Rap Park tried to find out why Jisoo was so close to Junwoo, but Jisoo obviously didn't want to say anything. Seeing this, Rap Park threw down the fried chicken with a displeased face and was about to leave. Jisoo didn't care at first, but after a while, she heard her dog barking frantically. After the other party left, Jisoo picked up her dog and used her superpowers to see her grandfather questioning Rap Park. It was only at this moment that Jisoo realized that her grandfather had long known that her mother had not committed suicide, so why had he kept it from her? This was a premeditated drinking party. Her best friend had specially arranged this event to help Jisoo solve the case. Her goal was to get Rap Park drunk, but Sunyeon could no longer hold her drink after 10 beers, while Rap Park remained calm. This completely confused Sunyeon. She stood up and signaled to Jisoo in Russian that she would definitely not get drunk, because she didn't want to see Jisoo's sad face. Jisoo looked a little distressed. Rap Park also let out a sigh of relief. The drunk Sunyeon even grabbed her ponytail. For Jisoo's sake, she had to continue drinking with Rap Park. Luckily, Rap Park had also gotten drunk. Jisoo waited until Sunyeon and the others had left and then walked up to Rap Park and used her superpowers on him. In her memory, she saw Rap Park give her mother the plans for the fraudulent reconstruction project and evidence of Representative Yoon's involvement, and promised to testify in court. But Representative Yoon found him at that time and asked him to choose between becoming disabled or becoming a member of the National Assembly. If he chose the latter, he would get back the reporting materials or make the other person unable to use them. Obviously, Rap Park chose the latter. He poisoned Jisoo's mother's coffee cup and then drove the car into the sea to make it look like Jisoo's mother had committed suicide. Jisoo was furious and sent Rap Park back to his office without evidence. She was somewhat helpless. Meanwhile, the police who were tailing Jaehyun realized that they had lost their target. He then told Junwoo about this. Realizing something was wrong, Junwoo immediately rushed to Rap Park's office. Unexpectedly, he was still a step too late. At this moment, Rap Park had already been killed. Junwoo turned around and saw a familiar old man. This person is Jisoo's grandfather. All the evidence at the scene indicates that Jisoo's grandfather is the serial killer. Junwoo hurried to Jaehyun's studio to report Rap Park's death, but he didn't see the slightest fluctuation on Jaehyun's face. Jaehyun said that he left the convenience store and went straight to the studio. Junwoo, however, intuitively believes that it is too coincidental for him to be in the studio every time something happens. Unexpectedly, Jaehyun started answering first. Is it because he feels that he rented this studio just to create an alibi? Since there is no evidence, Junwoo can only leave helplessly. Junwoo found Jisoo and wanted her to use her superpowers to read her grandfather's memories to see what happened. But Jisoo avoided the issue again because she was worried that her grandfather hated her from the bottom of his heart. But the next day Junwoo came back and told her that her grandfather was not the murderer. It turned out that he had just checked his grandfather's past medical records from the hospital. The old man suffered from Parkinson's syndrome. His condition had become so severe that he could not hold the murder weapon. His movements had become very slow. Even his hands and feet were out of control. Even his walking pace had become smaller. Before, Junwoo had sensed that something was wrong with her grandfather, and it was also because of the illness that it was difficult to make any changes in his expression. Jisoo remembered seeing her grandfather in the hospital and rushed into the bedroom. Sure enough, she found the Parkinson's medication in the drawer. Then she found a photo of her mother and herself together. Jisoo found another photo in the old photo album that made a deep impression on her. Her mother had cried and said not to lose it. At the time, she didn't know why her mother was so happy. Now, when she saw her grandfather's image in the corner of the photo, Jisoo suddenly understood that her grandfather didn't love them. He just wasn't good at expressing it. So she ran into the hospital room, with Junwoo as a guarantor. Jisoo entered the room where her grandfather was staying. Just as she reached out her hand to use her superpowers, Grandpa suddenly woke up and shook Jisoo's hand. The old man had never hated his granddaughter. He just wanted Jisoo to live a healthy life. That's why he had been investigating the case alone for all these years. When he saw Jisoo get admitted to veterinary school on her own, Grandpa had shed tears of relief. This time, he was unable to protect his granddaughter. In front of Jisoo, Grandpa took his last breath. Even at the last moment before death, he still firmly grasped Jisoo's hand. In fact, Grandpa was worried that Rap Park was plotting against Jisoo, so he went to the other party's office alone. But Grandpa never expected to see Rap Park being killed. He even became a suspect before he died. And Jisoo could no longer see this scene from Grandpa's perspective, and received a notice that no funeral could be held because her grandfather was a suspect. Junwoo promised Jisoo that he would take care of it. The next day, he brought a task force from Seoul to the hospital where her grandfather was being treated for Parkinson's disease. He proved to the other party that her grandfather was already a seriously ill patient with Parkinson's disease and needed help walking. So how could he have committed such a dangerous murder? Hearing this, the team leader of the task force lifted her grandfather's suspicion and allowed her grandfather's funeral to proceed as scheduled. At the funeral, the villagers were talking about the fact that since Grandpa was cleared of suspicion, the Rap Park murder case would have to be reopened. When the cattle farmer heard this, his face looked a little bad. He immediately found an excuse and left the funeral with a woman. As soon as the two left, Junwoo rushed to the funeral with his colleagues. Junwoo became suspicious when he saw that the man didn't see Jaehyun, so he arranged for his colleagues to investigate. At the same time, the detective told the police about Grandpa investigating Rap Park. It was only then that Jisoo realized what her grandfather had been going through alone. This only made her feel even more sad. She could have helped her grandfather, but she was afraid of being disliked by him, so she lost that opportunity forever. Just then, Junwoo received news from his colleague. The police officer who went out to investigate had not found any trace of Jaehyun. Not only had the other person quit his job at the convenience store, but Jaehyun was nowhere to be found at the studio he often visited. This aroused Junwoo's strong suspicion. On the other hand, the head of the criminal investigation team handed Jisoo the remains, which were full of evidence of crimes that her grandfather had collected over the years, all related to Rap Park. He let Jisoo decide for herself whether to expose this to the media. Perhaps it reminded her of her mother, who had been killed by Rap Park. Jisoo did not hesitate to expose it. And the next day, Jae-hyun, who had been missing for a whole day, suddenly showed up at her grandfather's funeral. Jae-hyun explained to Jisoo that he had heard that an unidentified body with similar characteristics to her mother's had been found. Unfortunately, after his investigation, it turned out that it was not Jisoo's mother. Jae-hyun said that he had indeed wanted to kill Rap Park, but he knew that even if he killed the other person's mother, he would not be able to get her back. Jisoo comforted him, saying that everything would be fine. Unexpectedly, this scene was seen by Junwoo, who had arrived. Meanwhile, the cow-raising security guard came to Jae-hyun's house surreptitiously and unexpectedly met the shaman who was about to go out. He took the opportunity to use his superpowers, and unexpectedly saw a hidden secret. So he found Junwoo and told him that the shaman had tried to assassinate Rap Park a few days ago. The two's conversation was heard by the team leader of the major crime unit who had arrived from Seoul. The team leader immediately approached the shaman to ask about the authenticity of the matter. After getting the answer he wanted, he hurried to the shaman's house to look for evidence. They didn't find the murder weapon that killed Rap Park, so they asked the shaman where the knife was hidden. The shaman obviously recognized the knife. While he was hesitating, the team leader took out the handcuffs and arrested him on suspicion of murder. After the shaman was taken away by the police, the cow farmer, who shouldn't have been there, appeared. Jisoo confessed to the detectives that she had superpowers, but the police officers laughed at her for this absurdity. So Jisoo walked up directly and used her superpower. Seeing that the team leader didn't believe it, Jisoo immediately used her power on the team leader as well. She immediately said that the team leader and his sister-in-law had been to a motel. When such a shocking thing was revealed, the team leader immediately panicked. Everyone really believed that Jisoo had superpowers. It turned out that Jisoo wanted to prove that the shaman was not a murderer. She had once touched the other person and stopped the assassination. In order not to wrong the innocent, Jisoo decided to use her supernatural powers on the shaman again. With the help of the police team's poor acting skills, they worked together to stall the Seoul crime team leader, allowing Junwoo to bring Jisoo into the interrogation room. Subsequently, Jisoo read the shaman's memories and could confirm that the shaman did have an alibi on the day of Rap Park's assassination. The last person the shaman saw was Jae-hyun. Then he told the team leader about it, and with Jae-hyun's testimony, the shaman was acquitted. Jisoo asked the shaman why he didn't tell the truth when he was arrested. The shaman said he was afraid, and when he saw Jae-hyun, he was half asleep, so he forgot to tell the truth. But the strange thing was that the two had an appointment to meet at the studio at 8:30, but Jae-hyun was half an hour late. So Junwoo, who was suspicious of Jae-hyun, conducted a test. Jae-hyun left the convenience store at 8 o'clock. It takes about half an hour to walk from the convenience store to the studio, but it only takes 20 minutes to get to Rap Park's office. In the end, Jae-hyun met the old man at 9 o'clock, and the 10 minutes in between gave him plenty of time to commit the crime. So Junwoo found Jae-hyun and told him about his suspicions. But Jae-hyun was not afraid at all and even told the reason why he was late that night. He did drive his grandfather to Rap Park that night. Junwoo said he could believe it, but needed him to cooperate with him on one thing. Unexpectedly, Jae-hyun said directly, "Do you want Jisoo to touch my buttocks?" Before this, Jisoo had revealed to him the fact that she had superpowers, plus the fact that she and Junwoo were close. So the clever Jae-hyun had already guessed Jisoo's real ability. Thinking about this, he was even more fearless and let Jisoo come directly to test him. And so Jisoo came a little awkwardly in front of Jae-hyun. And then when she used her ability, she saw that Jae-hyun had indeed escorted her grandfather to Rap Park that night, and she also saw that Jae-hyun had indeed appeared at the cowshed the day she was hit by the meteor shower. But it was slightly different from the location described by Jae-ho. From this, it can be inferred that Jae-hyun is not a murderer or a superhuman. But Junwoo, who had returned home, was absolutely certain that the murderer must regard superhumans as, and also knew that Jisoo had superhuman abilities. The next day, Jisoo goes to a cattle farmer's house and sees the woman who lives with Jae-ho. The woman knew the secret of Jisoo's supernatural power. That's why she wants to ask Jisoo to help her check her memories. Jae-ho gave her a ring that she lost, but she's too embarrassed to ask Jae-ho to look into it. When Jisoo was about to use his superpower on the woman, Jae-ho suddenly came in and interrupted them with his excitement. As if he was afraid of something, he pushed the woman into the room. This kind of behavior makes Jisoo feel a bit confused. When she got home, Jisoo talked to her best friend about it. As she talked, she suddenly felt something was wrong. It seems that Uncle Jae-ho told her about the third superhuman. When Jisoo realized something was wrong, she found Junwoo and told him what she thought. If Uncle Jae-ho is lying to them, the image of the third superhuman was described by the other party. Then he could have excluded himself. And he's also the one who said that Jae-hyun's figure seems to be similar to the height of the superhuman. Even the one who said that which uncle was the murderer was Jae-ho. Both of them realized that they'd been deceived by each other. Meanwhile, Jae-ho came back to Rap Park's office with takeout. First of all, It's certain that he had a dispute with the murdered web star. The third victim, Myeon, had also offended Jaeho by snitching, except for his own brother who couldn't find Jaeho's connection. Everyone else can be connected to him, and he knew that Jisoo had supernatural powers. The suspicion that Jaeho is the murderer of the serial killers is getting stronger. On the other hand, Jaeho took a look at the switch with bloodstains before he left after delivering the food. He realized something and left the place. Then he showed up at Jaehyun's studio wearing a raincoat. In fact, Mr. Jaeho isn't the murderer either, and he was stabbed multiple times during the investigation. Junwoo, who didn't know anything about it, was arranging for someone to track Jaeho. Unexpectedly, a suspicious person suddenly appeared. Junwoo got out of the car and called him out. This person is the serial murderer. Junwoo realized that when he saw his weapon dripping blood, the two of them started a fierce chase in the alley. Eventually, the murderer was blocked by Junwoo in a dead-end alley. During the chase, he recognized that it wasn't Jaeho. Junwoo guessed that Jaeho might have been killed. He injured his hand in the fight with the murderer. The murderer took the opportunity to escape. Junwoo tracked him all the way to the witch in Jaehyun's house. He looked at Jaehyun's house with suspicion. Jaehyun's sudden appearance aroused Junwoo's suspicion, and he saw Jaehyun after he took out the trash. He also saw fresh blood dripping from Jaehyun's hand, so Junwoo immediately went to the dumpster to look for a possible murder weapon. But he didn't get the results he wanted. He told Jaehyun not to disguise the murder weapon. That's when Jisoo called. It turns out that Mr. Cow Farmer didn't die but came to Jisoo's vet hospital. He told Jisoo a keyword and fainted on the floor. When Junwoo arrived, Jaeho was already dead. Angry Junwoo found Jaehyun again. He's already convinced that Jaehyun is the real serial killer, but Jaehyun told him to come back with evidence. So Junwoo went straight to Jaehyun's house and started searching but found no useful clues. Disappointed, he went back to the police station and found Jaeho's woman. The woman said that Jaeho has been unable to sleep lately and seems to be thinking about something. This time, he wanted to confirm something before leaving the house. After the woman left, Junwoo was deep in thought. He figured out that Jaeho found something and was killed by the real serial killer. Then he must have come to Jisoo's house to tell him the truth before he died. So Junwoo found Jisoo. Jisoo told him that before he died, he said the word all black. The two of them analyzed the situation and came up with an unacceptable result. The murderer may have some technique to make the superpowers only see the all black image. Maybe if he uses his powers again, he can find useful clues. But Junwoo warned Jisoo not to get close to Jaehyun. She didn't realize that Jisoo wanted to use her superpower to investigate just after she left. She called Jaehyun and asked him out. In fact, Jisoo still doesn't believe that Jaehyun is the murderer. She just wanted to test Jaehyun's attitude. She didn't expect Jaehyun to offer to let her touch him. He doesn't care about the attitude around him, but he doesn't want to be suspected by Jisoo. Hearing this, Jisoo relaxed and believed Jaehyun's words. On the way home, Jisoo told Jaehyun that the murderer might be a psychic, but he didn't know what he was capable of. When he heard that, Jaehyun showed a thoughtful expression. He must have realized something. Soon after, Jaehyun was summoned to the police station but was released due to lack of evidence. After leaving, Jaehyun went to Jisoo's pet hospital. He said he just received an important order. Jaehyun wanted Jisoo to accompany him to the studio. This is the only way to create an alibi for himself. Seeing Jisoo's hesitation, Jaehyun told her that the only person he can trust is you, and only Jisoo believed he wasn't the murderer. So Jisoo went to the studio with him. Just when she was enjoying their sweet time together, Junwoo's phone rang at the wrong time and showed no sign of hanging up. Jisoo had no choice but to go out and answer the phone. She didn't expect to run into Junwoo right after she went out. He saw them going out just now. Junwoo was worried about Jisoo's safety and wanted to take her away, but Jisoo refused to leave. Junwoo seems to tell her that if she wants to fall in love, she can talk to him. When she heard this, Jisoo was confused. She thought Junwoo was making fun of her and left angrily. In fact, Junwoo had already fallen in love with her without realizing it. When Jisoo returned to the studio, she didn't stop. Junwoo was still watching them through the window. Jisoo closed the window and pulled down the curtains. But Junwoo lured her to the police station after she came home and locked her in the holding cell. Junwoo explains that Jaehyun is the subject of his serious suspicion. Jaeho was just killed, so the next Jisoo with supernatural powers will be the target. That's why it's safest to stay in the police station. There's another reason Junwoo didn't say. He was just sent out of town on a business trip for a day. He was worried that something would happen to Jisoo if he didn't protect him. That's why he did this. Meanwhile, when Uncle Wizard came home, he was stalking Jaehyun. It turns out that he was just taken away by the police and told to go home to monitor Jaehyun's behavior. The police also asked him to see if he could find the murder weapon in the photo. When the wizard put down his cell phone, he didn't realize that Jaehyun had already spotted him. He opened the toilet door and found Jaehyun. He apologized and Jaehyun said it was okay. But he didn't leave immediately and looked at Jaehyun with a gloomy look. Then he closed the door and opened the cupboard and took out a knife. At that moment, Jae-hyun came out and grabbed the knife out of his hand. The back of the knife reflected the uncle's face. Seeing that he didn't leave, Jae-hyun asked him if he wanted an apple. He stumbled and said no and left. On the other side of the room, Jisoo had a flash of insight when she saw the chief of crime unit. She told him that she's a superhuman, and she wanted to demonstrate how to touch her buttocks. The chief was really shocked. Afterwards, Jisoo was sent out of the police station as a psychopath. But this was all her plan. When Jisoo left the station, she saw several missed calls from Jae-hyun. When she called back, she realized that Jae-hyun wanted to talk to her at the studio. When she couldn't stop him, her best friend told Junwoo about it. At the studio, Jae-hyun was staring at a toolbox for a long time. Inside was a bloody knife that looked like the one that killed Jae-ho. Just then, Jisoo came in and the figure of the wizard appeared behind him. Seeing this, Jae-hyun closed the toolbox and pushed it aside. Uncle Wizard explained that it was too dark on the road and that he escorted Jisoo. Then Jae-hyun intentionally spilled a cup of coffee on him to get rid of him, but he asked Jae-hyun to go with him. When they left, Jisoo noticed the yellow toolbox. Jae-hyun took him to the restroom, but he stopped him and asked him to go in with him. At this moment, the atmosphere suddenly became a bit delicate. Knowing that Jae-hyun is a suspect, how dare the sorcerer ask Jae-hyun to accompany him? On the other hand, Jisoo opened the toolbox and saw the bloody knife. She couldn't believe it and ran away. Jae-hyun came back here in no time. There was no sign of Jisoo. He knew something was wrong and chased after her, but found that Jisoo had already left. Jae-hyun went back to the studio and grabbed the murder weapon and chased after him. Jisoo fell down during the escape and looked up to find a man in a raincoat. At that moment, Jae-hyun also rushed over to take Jisoo away, but he was knocked to the ground by the man in the raincoat. Jae-hyun stopped him and told Jisoo to leave. I didn't realize that Jisoo was also very honest. She left Jae-hyun and ran away, but after Jisoo called the police, she went back to the scene with a shovel. But when she came back, the murderer was gone and Jae-hyun was left in a pool of blood. However, the murderer didn't leave but hid in the distance waiting for his chance. Just as he was about to kill Jisoo, an alarm sounded in the distance. When Junwoo arrived, he only saw Jae-hyun's body. He wanted to comfort the frightened Jisoo. Instead, he got slapped in the face. She was supposed to help Junwoo with the case, but the deaths of important people around her made Jisoo feel devastated. That's why she didn't want to say anything. Meanwhile, the police found the wizard who collapsed in the studio. When he wakes up, he explains that he's been set up and doesn't know what happened. He was also concerned about Jisoo and Jae-hyun's safety, but it's all just a disguise. On the other hand, Jisoo is being questioned by the GSS, but there's no way to explain that he used his powers to investigate the case. Luckily, Junwoo came in time. He asked the GSS to stop questioning innocent people as suspects, but he was sarcastic about his incompetence. You need to stay calm and don't involve the people around you. These words touched Junwoo's pain. He punched him without saying a word. As a result, the police chief suspended him for a month. Junwoo was so tough that he handed over his police license. When he left the station, he saw Jisoo coming out of the station. Junwoo wanted to stop him, but Jisoo didn't pay any attention to him. When he got home, Junwoo blamed himself. He didn't sleep all night because of it. Then, early in the morning, the head of the police department came with the police officers. They risked suspension to help Junwoo investigate the case. The chief took back his ID and told him he couldn't do anything without it. So Junwoo drove to the National Search Division to find out what he could find out. If he can find a way to create a black screen with his eyes open, he can identify the culprit. But he didn't find any useful clues at the National Search Center. But he found something when he was heading back in the dark. The heat-insulating paper on the glass of the car he borrowed from a colleague could create a total blackout. But if you look closely, you can still see the silhouette in the distance. This realization made Junwoo realize something. So he found Jisoo and told him what he found. Junwoo guessed that the murderer could create an all-black image if he wore sunglasses. When he killed Rap Park, he wore sunglasses, but because Grandpa went in and turned on the lights, the bright light could make the image underneath the sunglasses clearer. So the killer turned off the light with his eyes closed. That explains why there's blood on the switch. But Jisoo wasn't happy when she found out. The successive blows she received made her lose interest in helping with the case. She ignored Junwoo and went to the witch's house to worship Jae-hyun. She didn't expect Jisoo to see the sorcerer wearing sunglasses. At that moment, she remembered Junwoo's words, so without saying a word, Jisoo went straight to the sorcerer's side and used her superpower. The result was that she found the real murderer. In fact, the real killer of the serial killers is the sorcerer. When Jisoo used her superpower, she saw the scene of Jae-hyun's tragic death. The sorcerer realized how to create a black screen to avoid Jisoo's detection when he assassinated Rep Park last time. Uncle Jae-ho was killed by the sorcerer because he realized this detail. Jisoo never imagined that the seemingly nice sorcerer was such a vicious psychopath. All the recent murders in the village were the work of the sorcerer. The sorcerer knew his secret was out. but he wasn't scared at all. Jisoo secretly recorded the sorcerer on his cell phone when he turned around. She didn't realize that the sorcerer took her cell phone out of her pocket when they looked at each other. Jisoo then realized that the other party's ability to read memories was through her eyes. Seeing that his secret was revealed, the sorcerer began to feel sorry for Jae-hyun. The last time he was chased by Junwoo and ran home, he bumped into Jae-hyun. That's when Jae-hyun became suspicious of the sorcerer. Not only did he find the murder weapon with blood on it, but he also realized that the sorcerer's superpower is his eyes. That's why he turned his back to avoid the sorcerer's gaze in the restroom. Realizing that he'd been discovered, the sorcerer was ready to kill him, but Jae-hyun grabbed the knife before him. Then he pretended to peel an apple to avoid the sorcerer's probing. Because Jae-hyun kept his head down, the sorcerer didn't want to go any further. At that time, Jae-hyun was able to escape, but when he asked Jisoo to come to the studio, he was unprepared. The sorcerer realized that he had discovered a secret. Jae-hyun lured the sorcerer outside even though he knew his life was in danger, because it was the only way he could protect Jisoo. Jisoo asked sadly where the murder weapon was, but how could the sorcerer leave such a weapon behind? He destroyed the evidence long ago. Plus, there was no concrete evidence. No one will believe that Jisoo has supernatural powers. That's why the sorcerer doesn't intend to kill Jisoo, but he warned Jisoo to pretend he didn't know anything. When Jisoo returned home and heard the sorcerer's voice organizing Jaehyun's funeral, he made up his mind. In the evening of the next day, a search party came to the wizard's house and arrested him. During the day, Jisoo told Junwoo that the sorcerer was the murderer. He deduced his cell phone code. The cell phone is Jaehyun's legacy, and it holds the evidence he paid for with his life. Because Jaehyun knew that Jisoo would see the scene through his memory. Jaehyun died a horrible death at the hands of the sorcerer, but he eventually exposed the sorcerer's murder to the public. But it didn't end with the sorcerer's capture. There were more deaths at the hands of the sorcerer. In the interrogation room, the sorcerer revealed his motive. Because of his wife's betrayal, he ended her life with his hands. That's why he's so sensitive to betrayal. That's why the people who had betrayed him before became his targets. What's worse is that the sorcerer's story about his family tragedy was just a lie he made up. Killing is just a fun game for him. He likes to see the last image of the victim before they die. Junwoo was ready to leave when he couldn't stand it anymore, but the sorcerer wouldn't let him go and asked him to let himself go. It turns out that the witch left herself an insurance policy. She kidnapped Sunyoung in advance and knew that Jisoo would check his memory, so he put on sunglasses and hid Sunyoung in a hidden warehouse to give himself a chance of survival. Jisoo and Junwoo are furious but can't do anything about it. In order to take away the evil witch at the police station, Jisoo didn't hesitate to stab him in the neck. This is the only way to make the police afraid of him. Jisoo asked the sorcerer to tell him where Sunyoung was kidnapped. When the two of them brought the sorcerer to the location specified by the other party, they met Junwoo's enemy here. It's none other than the ruthless Boss Bai. The sorcerer had read Junwoo's memories. In order to protect themselves, they made a deal. Shortly after, a punk pulled Jisoo's sleeve and tried to inject her with a potion, but Jisoo grabbed the potion and stabbed him. Because she had read Junwoo's memories, that's why she unlocked her hand just now. As a result, the gangster who was injected with the drug fainted. Jisoo was able to access Junwoo's memory and came to the operating room where Junwoo's waist was being cut. When he realized there was an intruder, the doctor immediately went out, but Jisoo hit him hard. If it wasn't for Junwoo's timely appearance, the other man could have been killed. The two were about to leave when Boss Bai surrounded them again. Looking at Junwoo, Boss Bai was completely convinced, but his pleas for mercy did not work. Then they called the head of the police to inform the police. The other party has already come to a cornfield with Sunyoung's little sisters. This is the same place she saw through the witch's memory. Jisoo was able to locate Sunyoung's kidnapping location by memorizing the sound coming from the black image. Sunyoung is finally rescued and the next step is to capture the sorcerer. The two of them turned to look at Boss Bai, who was looking like a big asshole, and had a plan in mind. The next day, they ambushed the harbor where the sorcerer was going to escape and waited for Boss Bai's men to notify them. Unexpectedly, when they arrived at the sorcerer's hiding place, they lost track of each other. It turned out that the sorcerer had just boarded the ship and already knew through his supernatural power that Boss Bai had informed them in advance. Knowing that he will be caught up with the sorcerer's heart was furious. When he saw a man passing by, he was even more evil. The two men arrived just in time to see each other fall to the ground and wail. Jisoo saw the sorcerer's warning through her powers. She told Junwoo about it, but Junwoo was sure that he would kill again. And sure enough, another victim was targeted by the sorcerer. When they arrived, Junwoo ran to call for help and Jisoo stayed put. Unexpectedly, there was an accident. The one who fell to the ground was the sorcerer who had changed into the victim's costume. Jisoo was taken by the sorcerer to the smuggling ship. When he was about to board the ship, Junwoo realized something was wrong and arrived. He bluffed that he was about to activate his powers and winked at Jisoo. Jisoo seems to remember something. As Junwoo counts down, Jisoo throws an elbow and breaks free. Then Junwoo seized the opportunity and rushed up and kicked the wizard to the ground. And once again, he used his specialty, the over-the-shoulder slam. The captured sorcerer is still very wild. He said that with his eye power, he could make a good living even if he was in prison. He looked at the two men with a smug look on his face. Jisoo went straight for his eyes. The village has returned to peace with the arrest of Uncle Wizard. The police chief proposed to his sister-in-law with a love story in the local language. He told her he was going to a wedding in a few days. They were about to kiss when the policewoman interrupted them. She went to Jisoo's pet hospital to have her dog sterilized, but Jisoo wasn't there. She ran to the passenger terminal, but she didn't see the person she wanted to see. It turns out Junwoo was leaving to go back to Seoul. When Jisoo was disappointed, Junwoo appeared behind her. Junwoo changed the last train to wait for Jisoo. They wished each other good luck, but they didn't say what they wanted to say in their hearts. 8 months later, Jisoo has become a top internet celebrity through her superpower. She even appeared on a pet show with a famous host. On the show, Jisoo's superpower was recognized by all the hosts. Unexpectedly, the host thought it was amazing and even raised his buttocks to let Jisoo touch the ground. Jisoo was a bit flustered, but the director interrupted in time. At this time, her best friend Sunyoung has become Jisoo's manager and has accepted the male teacher's confession of love. She told Yigyeon to cover her ears. The rest of the conversation with the teacher is a bit embarrassing. Their words of love are too harsh, but it made Jisoo's heart grow fonder. When she looked at the police department building, she thought of Junwoo. Then she asked Sunyoung to stop the car. She borrowed his lipstick to surprise Junwoo. Junwoo, who didn't know anything about it, was exchanging pleasantries with his co-workers. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a woman's footsteps. Jisoo's red lips are the same as her sister-in-law's. Now we've finally solved the case. Both of them borrowed Sunyoung's lipstick. Jisoo asked Junwoo to treat her to dinner. When she arrived at the restaurant, she wanted to tell Junwoo about her plan, but Junwoo kept answering the phone. Jisoo asked him if he needed her help. There's no need to be too polite in their relationship, but Junwoo's eyes lit up when he heard that. He told Jisoo to just change his uniform. It turns out that Junwoo wanted her to get the memories of a female drug lord, but when Jisoo was about to do it, the female drug lord broke her cellmate's hand. Jisoo panicked. When the woman asked her what she was doing, she didn't know what to do. Although Jisoo's mission failed, but she found her next opportunity in the prison soccer game. As the goalkeeper, Jisoo didn't catch the oncoming soccer ball, but that didn't stop her from pouncing on something else. The female drug lord was caught by her. Jisoo tries to explain, but the drug lord grabs her. But then Junwoo suddenly appeared. Junwoo has been watching Jisoo's every move. He was worried that she might be hurt or in danger. After getting the information from the female drug lord, the two of them started flirting with each other regardless of the occasion. They were talking about their brother, who they could date later. This scene completely infuriated the female drug lord and they ran away. This is the end of the story. Thank you for watching.